Kukuninyak shot by Masma, translates to good evening, how are you in Pima. Welcome to Love Food, Hate Money, podcast where we talk about how much we love food and how we'll throw all of our money at it. I'm going to be host Jonah, going to be co-host Courtney.
Hey!
And the reason I'm talking in Pima is we've got a special guest in the house this evening, Chef Drew Anderson from Kai Restaurant over in Chandler.
Pleasure.
How you doing, buddy?
Not good. Hot as fuck, but yeah, good.
It's a little toasty out there today.
It's warm here in the desert.
Yeah, I ran outside today because I forgot my flip flops in the car. Like, oh yeah, like it's easy. Like, start darting like down my driveway. I'm like,
Barefoot?
nope. Yeah, barefoot. Nope. Feet are on fire.
Oh my god!
The fact that you have feet is a miracle.
It really is.
He just looks down, just nubs.
Oh, and that's very different than where you're from, because in Minnesota, if you walk outside barefoot in June or July, I guess we're in July now, you'd be totally fine.
Oh yeah, it's normal. Yeah, easy.
Or anything but normal here. Drinks. We got to talk about drinks.
What are we drinking?
We are drinking a little coffee bubbly combo, because there's nothing more fun than espresso, or in our case mocha pot, because we don't own a home espresso machine. We don't hate money that much. Drinking some cartel coffee. Let's see, what is it? It is from Colombia. It is a wash process light roast, and then there's all sorts of funny details on the farm and tasty notes and whatnot, but long story short, tasty mocha pot, and it goes good with sparkling water for those of you that have the opportunity to make yourself actual espresso and drink sparkling water with it.
Espresso tonics, baby.
Espresso tonics.
I had one of those for the first time like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Some lemon. Changed my fucking world.
Oh my
So
goodness.
It was so good.
They're so good. And espresso lemonades are also pretty good if you ever go to a spot and that does them. Or if they have lemonade and espresso, just buy them separate, because there's a lot of people that will like lift their nose at that
What
concept.
are you doing?
But it's pretty tasty, especially if you can get some sparkling water too. Sparkling lemonades. So yeah, that's what we're drinking. You've got a couple beers over there. You can.
Because you're on a caffeine break where you're going to save your little hummingbird of a heart.
Yeah, thank God.
So what are you drinking?
Harlan Brewing the Rumbler. It's a double hopped hopped pale ale.
Uh-huh.
Which is my favorite brewery out of San Diego.
Yep.
Easily.
Might be my favorite brewery.
Right
It's
now.
like hard stop right now, because they don't make really gimmicky beers, but all the beers that they make are like really good, true to style.
If we ever go to Minnesota together, there's a brewery called Dangerous Man that kind of was the brewery to be in Minnesota. Like, they do like a cool like experimental beers. They don't do wholesale. They like,
Unfortunate.
but like their tap room is always packed.
Nice.
Like, you can't fucking get in. And then I'm drinking the 7 years Goldwater Brewing, the 7 C's, as a celebration of being over 7 years, I guess. I've been here for 3, so...
You're like, I don't know nothing about
what's
this.
4 more years?
That's 4 more years. It's that beer. That's what you get. If you're here 4 more years, you also get a beer.
Yeah, you get an
It's a
award.
double West Coast IPA, which is pretty good. It's kind of heavy for how hot it is outside at 115 degrees in the 9th circle of hell.
Yep.
That is
Welcome.
the state. So, yeah.
Which is hugely different. So you spent your first 10 years in the industry back in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
It was cool. It was much different. So I grew up in a very agricultural heavy era of my life, along with the boom of culinary.
Yeah.
I set goals to become the best chef I could be and work with the best I could, and which I did.
Yeah.
But being young and dumb, I spent years and years just working a ton, which got me to where I am today, which is worth it for me. But the sacrifice that went along with it was huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you started young like we did, and you started at Arby's.
I did. That was my first job.
Still has the meats.
Dude, I got sorry for you guys after the slow segment. Yeah. So I was 16. Got my first job. Was mile road at Arby's, which was my first introduction to like not only the working force of America, but to, the food industry in general, like hospitality industry. And I grew up in a very hospitable forward household.
Yeah.
My household was always like where all the kids came. Like we always did dinners there. Like we barbecued, we grilled. Like it was very much like geared toward family.
Yeah.
Which transitioned well for me.
Right. It's kind of the natural next step is, how do I do this and get paid for it?
Exactly. Or not. I mean,
You get paid?
There's been some chunks, I'm sure, where there was not so much money involved.
But yeah, so like, I worked there and I kind of fell in love with the rush of service, the pace, and also swore off the food industry.
How'd that go for you?
Not too well because I'm still here.
That's the first step of coming into the industry, is swearing off of it.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of festers.
I think that's how you know that you're never going to be fulfilled in anything else, is if you can't stop coming back to it.
Yeah, which is true. It's an addiction.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But so yeah, I worked there from like I was like 16 to 18. Just like my hustle years, and being a chef or going to the culinary industry was never a mark for me. I never wanted to be this.
I don't know why I am this way.
My first goal was to be a MLS soccer player. That did not work. My second goal was to be an artist or an art teacher. Mm-hmm. And then my third was to be a music producer.
All very creative.
Yeah.
Except with the exception of soccer being more of an athletic thing. So I think it's kind of funny you found that middle ground.
Well, it's kind of weird. Like how I look at it now is like, I'm so competition geared, but then also have like the art background. So it kind of makes sense to end up in kitchens.
Yeah.
In
all
a way.
about competitions, and then especially at the fine dining level specifically, like your plate ups and everything like that is just a way to do art.
Oh yeah. I mean, I worked for 10 years in cutthroat kitchens. You fought every day for your job.
Yep.
Which is wild to think about. Like, like this day and age, like it's wild that, I would be working pasta or poisson and look at my meat cook and say, yo, I'm coming for your job. Like, watch out.
Yep.
And then, the meat cook will look at the stew like, hey, chef, I'm coming for your job. And that's how I grew up for years. So, like, I want your job.
Yeah. What's
so you better be better than me at all points in time, because I'm coming for it.
I think it's a funny thing that could still exist now. It just has to like be spun slightly different, or it's like, no, like end of the day, like everyone's growth should be the goal. Like if you're a head chef, like you should be like helping to foster everyone's like, yeah, you can get to the next job, and then you can get to the next job, and then either you open up another restaurant and they can take over, or you send them off on their way. Like I feel like there should still be. It's funny how it can be the same now, but it has to come from a place of like, oh no, we're all growing together. Because I feel like there's enough of that like negative that could be like, oh no, I'm going to the cutthroat side of it. I think is like the scary part where like you get lots of funny, dark industry burnout. I laugh at it as a coping mechanism. But the dark side of the industry, like, no, like there is like some merit to like, no, we're all here to make each other better.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of like what it ended up being, was like keep you in check, right? Like if you put a bullshit or if you prep bullshit, like I'm gonna call you out. So is the garde manger and so is the commis, because the commis wants the garde manger's job, the garde manger wants your job. And if you slack off, like it's not okay. Like, but that's what kept you on your game. Like, it built those kind of habits for years and years and end of like, it's just natural now.
Yeah.
I mean, I run my kitchen the same way. I don't run a daycare.
What?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Why are there so many babies then?
But I hold my cooks accountable. I expect my cooks to hold each other accountable. Mm-hmm. If they see it's wrong, like you call them out in respectful ways, like, hey, like that's wrong.
Try again.
Let's fix this.
Yeah, and like you grow, become better.
Yeah,
totally. So you worked at Arby's.
Yep.
You go to culinary school.
Yep, against my father's will.
What, as one is to do.
Easily, yeah.
And then you, because we know
It
you
also makes you
personally-
sound like a Disney princess,
Oh yeah.
which I appreciate.
Well, it was either that or get locked in a tower. You know, those are the choices.
He got locked in a tower against his father's will. That was that's the third chapter.
My brother's a prison guard, so I almost got that kind of.
So, because we know you personally, it's easier to kind of piece together your story. So you did culinary school. The last 3 months were an externship.
Yep.
And that's really kind of what launched you into more of the fine dining.
Yeah, so for culinary school, you know, I did student council. I competed through ACF, hot side. A throwback to ACF.
Throwback to ACF. We'll do a whole episode on ACF.
Yeah,
'cause it's just
American
a fun one.
Culinary Federation, for those of you that
Aren't a nerd.
that aren't nerds.
But yeah, you know, my last 3 months of my schooling was an externship. I went to a small fine dining French restaurant. I worked for a chef who was old school Chicago. I walked in, did my stage. He said, "Yeah, cool. Like, you know, you good knife skills. Like, thank you."
Great.
He's like, "Yeah. Do you want to start tomorrow?" I said, "Cool."
What did he have you do for knife skills? So was it actual prep, or did he have like spare root vegetables that he was like, take this fuck off?
It was both.
Nice. It's funny to hear about like
The stage process.
the stage process, because there's a lot of similarities, but I think the variance where it's like, what do you actually want to see as the owner of a restaurant from someone? I feel like the most well-known one is like cook an egg.
And I think it also varies on your skill level, essentially, like your resume, your background. So me being fresh out of culinary school, he's like, "Yeah, just cut some vegetables." I said, "Cool." So I'm like, "Yeah, like I'll look him on." I'm super stoked. Like I'm trained like classic French. Like I can't wait. And he's like, "Yeah, so since this is your externship, I'm not gonna pay you. I will pay you knowledge, and that's what you can get. You're technically still in school, so why do I waste my labor on you?" I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Classic.
Yeah, I'm like 19. I'm like, sure, like
I love
whatever.
being a slave.
Give me the door. So I ended up working there for 3 years. Went from basically commis, which is a prep cook, to a sous. And then at that point, I'm 21, just about 22.
Yeah, that's young. You're a baby.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Like I need like see like the culinary scene in Minneapolis. So I worked maybe 4 jobs in less than a year and a half. And by that, like, it's not me like applying. It's me getting phone calls.
Yeah.
From different chefs. Like, "Hey, like I heard you work for like Seth Johnson. You know, he said you're really good. Like, come over here for like beauty season. Like, help me out." I'm like, "Cool. Hey, I heard you work for Adam Bartos. Like, come over here and work. Hey, I work with you as a sous chef at Pazaluna. I'm with a restaurant. Like, you want to come be my sous here? Like, open one up." I'm like, "Sure, great."
You're like, all right, whatever you need, guys.
Yep.
It's a funny tight window to have all those like calls too, like especially with Arizona as a focal point. Like you get a new restaurant every 8 months.
Right.
It's not a whole bunch of actual people that are like, "Hey, like,
Yeah,
come here."
It, like, the Minneapolis food scene to me is a much older food scene than Arizona is.
Well, everything's older than Arizona.
We're a baby state.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, it was kind of crazy, you know, being 21, 22, 23, 24, like just getting phone calls from like all these people who are really high up in the industry who somehow got my phone number. Like, I'm some shithead line cook, right? Like, just bust my ass, like trying to like.
It was all from the same restroom stall, actually.
Chef for hire.
Yeah, please call this number. But no, it was crazy to me, and you know, I saw a lot, which benefited me huge. It's crazy, like, so for me, like a little small tangent about hiring for me, right? Like, I look for like longevity, but I'm the last person to say longevity. I've worked in the industry for 12 years. I worked in 12 to 13 different restaurants.
Sure.
There's a certain point of that hopping around in the industry that's, you get about a year into a restaurant. Like, you have to go through a full season with it to get a full experience out of it. So at least in my smaller sphere, because I have not worked in quite that many places, but I feel like it's interesting to like go through an entire restaurant cycle and then reset. I feel like there's something fun about the camaraderie after that first set, but I think that within that first full cycle, you can really get a lot. The bell curve of knowledge that you're going to get off of it, like, drops off where it's like, okay, now we're sustaining.
Yeah. And
it's
I
less
think
new.
the industry as a whole is like you work at different places to gain different skills.
Exactly. Like I worked for some of the worst chefs and the best chefs of my life. Adam Bartos, he runs Capital Grill in Minneapolis. He's the best manager I've ever worked for in my life. I worked for him for 3 months.
But you learned what you needed to learn from him.
And I said, like, hey, I'm leaving to be an opening suit at a restaurant. He's like, congratulations, like, thank you so much for, like, coming on board. And we're still friends to this day.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Like, his management style, like, it readjusted mine. Because I came from, the old school management style of, like, throwing things, yelling, screaming, like, why the fuck are you here? Like, there's back door. If you want to leave, fucking leave. Like, that kind of stuff. And he wasn't that. And to me, like, that was, like, eye-opening.
Like, you can be successful in this and not just treat everyone like shit. That's cool.
Yeah. Like, I went there in December at the St. Paul Hotel. We're doing 300 covers a night. I'm working saute 1 and 2. It's a blind line, right? So I'm just getting calls.
Oh my god!
And I'm just ripping 12 burners. I think I have like 8 or 10 different dishes at the time. I'm just fucking ripping.
I heard 80 initially, and I was like, you're lying.
I grew 2 arms.
If I grow with her, that'd be great. But no, I mean, I just, like, put my head down and worked. And for him to come in and, like, say, like, hey, like, how you doing today? Like, appreciate you guys. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, it was eye-opening for me.
Just gave you that kind of, like, oh, shit, like, these are real people.
Yeah, people, like someone actually cares about me.
Yeah.
Which, like, you don't really receive for much of the industry that we're in.
It's funny because it's an industry about hospitality and serving people, but I think front of house gets to reap the rewards, where back of house is the one that's doing a lot of the work, and it's very little thanks. Come back to the kitchen.
Other than, like, the random restaurant here or there where it's like, buy the kitchen around. It's like, for $3. You're like, this is a really, that's...
You're like, I don't think they need help drinking more, but
thanks
okay.
for helping facilitate their alcoholism. Like, that's sad.
So who would you say in Minnesota, like, really influenced your career the most? Like, who do you still really carry?
So my idol, I think idol is a strong word.
Sure.
Someone who I was on like work for was Gavin Kaysen. Mm-hmm. So he opened up Spoon's Table in 2014. This is, again, like, in the prime boom of, like, the culinary scene. And it was a goal. Like, I staged there and didn't get a job.
What did you have to do for that stage?
What
were you bad at?
I worked 14 hours a day.
Oh.
So you just burnt.
Well, I mean, I started in the morning. I picked oxtails. I laminated dough by hand.
Well, that's a waste of time, but a fun thing to do, I guess.
Then I went and got ready to do family meal, which I helped with. Then go on to do prep and work garbage at night. And I started at 7 in the morning and got done at 11 or 12 at night.
A long day.
Yep. So
you did all that, and then he was like, thanks for the oxtail, see you later.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, yeah, he was full staffed. So I understand, like, why, but, like, for me, it was kind of like an eye-opening experience of, like, this, like, what food is. Mm-hmm. So I went back. I ended up working for a chef who got 30 under 30. He was a tyrant.
There's a certain character type.
Young hothead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I was the same. Like, I ran a restaurant once I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
I was very driven, but didn't compose myself in the right way.
Sure.
Which at 24, like, who expects you to do that? You know what I mean?
24 is still very young.
I was running a fine dining restaurant at 24. Like, I was like,
yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
This is what I want. Like, I think I worked 7 days a week for a year straight.
Oh man.
The burnout on that alone is, what's the most days that I've worked in a row? I think 20,
Yeah.
21. And by the end of it, like, even just simple tasks of like, all right, bust this table. I was like, I don't know how to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have brain.
But yeah, I was doing that. I was working the line for 3 days a week. Expo, doing butchery, doing ordering, like R&D, like all that kind of shit. I got divorced subsequently from that. But, so I go to this new restaurant and work for the chef. And being recently divorced, I kept running to my ex-wife in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to fucking leave.
I think I got to get out of this scene. It's too small.
And for just enough context for everyone else, like, wife was also in the industry.
Yeah.
And if you are in any food city, everyone knows everyone. That, like, period.
Yeah.
Whether it's here, it sounds like Minneapolis, like,
Yeah,
it's a tight
small.
fucking circle.
I mean, like, we, like, all the industry, like, frequent the same bars.
Yeah. Same industry bars.
Yep.
Hanging out.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So I ended up buying a plane ticket to Alaska. And left in 2 weeks. I got hired at a 4-star, 4-diamond resort.
Which is good foreshadowing.
Yep. So I worked at a restaurant called the Seven Glaciers.
It was gorgeous.
We took a tram up the mountain every day. It was called Seven Glaciers because the dining room was all windows. You can see 7 individual glaciers from the dining room. So I worked there for a season. And when I was in Alaska, I got a phone call from my previous chef, who's a tyrant. And he's like, hey, so we're going to open a restaurant. I'm going to be the chef of a Gavin Kaysen concept. It's called Belcour, which is his, ode to Danny Boulud, which he worked for 10 years and earned Michelin stars and kind of like held his reins. Mm-hmm. I said, yes, I'll be on a plane tomorrow. So I got back home. We opened up this restaurant. Like we're the restaurant that is number 7 in the country, like to open this year. The pressure is unbelievable. I'm cooking for New York Times. I'm cooking for Grant Atkins, Dominique Crenn. I'm cooking for all these people who are Sean Brock, Jeremy Fox. It's fucking unbelievable. And I sit there and I'm working. I'm the only poisson cook, the fish cook. I'm working 6 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm like, cool.
Just a little bit of working.
Just a little bit. And then we open for brunch. And these ex-Sue's like, I want Drew. I'm like, okay, cool. So I sit there, I'm like, so what's it mean for me? He's like, well, you're not going to work 2 doubles on Fridays, Saturdays. So I'm pulling 6 days a week. And I'm working 2 doubles on Friday, Saturday. So Friday, Saturday, I'm working 3 hours. And, I get to the point where
You were hourly at this point?
Yeah.
Were they at least paying you correctly hourly?
I'm making so much money that I'm getting taxed in a different tax bracket.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Well, that's...
And you also have no time to spend that money.
Exactly.
You're working so much you can kind of just pile up and be like, I'll deal with this later.
Yep. Like I saw my girlfriend for half a day a week.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, like, because my body crashes.
You just get actually tired, and you're like, well, I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah, I mean, and like this is like, I'm so young, so I'm pushing. I'm at the bar till 2 a.m. with all my coworkers. Wake up and go back to work. It's just a not healthy cycle. So at his point, probably around like 9 or 10 months, I get drug along, like becoming like, oh yeah, like you'll be a Sue. I'm like, yeah, they keep fucking me over, and it
gotta have that carrot stick out there.
It's not Gavin. It's my chef. So we're sitting back, we're double shotting Pavlos. And it's me, Gavin, my chef. And, my chef makes some smart ass fucking comments to me. He's like, yeah, can you imagine being back in Alaska right now? I'm like, I'm looking at a fucking plane right now and leave.
You know what?
You're like, it's all I'm imagining, actually.
For the last time.
And, I have the chef who owns these multiple restaurants, who's a James Beard, Rising Star, Michelin star chef, just like, look at me. The next day, he sits me down and he's like, hey, like, I need you to spoon table.
You're like, done.
Yeah, I'm like, great. Like, this is like my goal.
I get to go back home.
So it's December at Spoon. Like, we're 300 covers a night. We're fine dining. We are pushing the Midwestern cuisine every day. We're redefining it. and I hop on pasta station. I've never worked a single shit in pasta station. I have no fucking deal what's going on. You know, we're doing fresh shaved truffles. We're making like uni butters. We're doing like carrot blancs.
Delicious.
I thought about my life many times in about the first 2 months at the restaurant. You know, my chef was me. He's like, he's like, you know, it takes 3 months for any cook to like be comfortable in this restaurant, to even like walk in the door and feel okay, which is so true. You know,
I like the imagery because it's the specific style of like filmmaking where like the film goes to a screeching halt and it's just a still image of you and everything goes great and it's like, hi, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. And just there is so much pasta in front of me and I don't even know when the last time I slept was. Let's rewind.
Oh yeah, it was crazy, you know. But I got there, and I'm cooking on a different level. I'm cooking for, you know, people who know who food is. There, at one point, I remember being online for a pasta station, and we ran out of tarragon. And it was like a tarragon, parsley, and chive medley that like we went on pasta. And I talked to my sous. I'm like, hey, like we're out of tarragon. Like he's like, cool. It's like just these parsley and chives. So I have my exec chef come down and like help me. I'm in the shits at this point. Like I'm fucking just ripping. Like, and pasta is also blind line in the restaurant, and we do apps and entrees, full and half sizes. So he goes and he looks and he throws in my parsley chive mixture to garnish and to finish the pasta. He tastes it. He's like, what the fuck is this? I go, what do you mean? He's like, where's the tarragon? I'm like, chef, like, we're out.
We just talked about this, remember?
You know, my sous told me that it's okay. He's like, you are serving a room full of 3 Michelin star chefs. They can taste the fucking difference. He's like, if you're out, you come to me.
You're like, okay.
And it's like month 2 of me being there.
You're like shitting yourself.
Like,
God, no, why?
Like, okay, well, I guess I'll just walk out the door. I'll show myself out.
It took me about 6 months to get like good on my station and to receive like the first compliment from my chef. It's like, hey, like, good job tonight. I go, thank you so much. It's like, yeah, this is called Build Me Up. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like,
this is the one
tomorrow
you get.
I'm gonna tear you down.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. But, you know, is again, like, he's the chef who, like, I go back to Minneapolis and say hi. And he's like, so when are you coming back? Like, I have a job for you. I was like, cool, but thank you. But, like, at some point, it will eventually.
Sure.
But that kind of, like, really defined my roots in fine dining in the level that we executed at. Like, we're doing dry aging. We're making misos. We're making guarms. We're making fresh pasta and health every day. And we're not doing 30 covers.
Yeah.
We're doing 300 covers a night.
How many people are on that staff?
So we had an AM, a PM sous chef, a CDC, an exec, and then Gavin was the chef owner.
We're at 5.
We had a pastry chef, a pastry sous.
6, 7.
We had 2 pastry cooks to work the line. We had 2 pastry cooks to work the mornings.
It's crazy to think of that many people involved with the pastry program.
Pastry.
Yep. And then you run to commis. We had 3 to 4 commis. We had 3 garde manger. We had 2 entremet.
It's a lot of salad.
2 pasta, 2 fish, 2 meat.
Wow.
And we were open for 7 days a week and ran brunch on Sundays.
It sounds like a big team, but not with that many hours.
Yeah.
When you have that many hours, like, that's tight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of people if you're running a restaurant 5 days a week. If you're running it 7 days a week, like, oof.
And then we had a guy who did all of our pasta and then ferments.
Okay. He was a special projects guy.
Yep. Yeah, like charcuterie, like all dry aging, like all that kind of stuff.
What was his... Was there a funny name for his role? Because the caveman. He just hangs out in the cave and does things with
the meats.
Weird temperatured items.
Well, yeah. There's like he made some weird shit, but it was so fucking cool.
That honestly, of all the jobs in that restaurant, that one sounds like the most fun to me.
Yep. When Noma came out with his fermentation book in 2019, we got it like a year before.
Oh, cool.
So like we're doing like weird shit. Like this is how like I learned how to make miso from that restaurant, which I brought to Kai. Like guarms, like shoyus, like that kind of stuff. Like it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's different.
And I think that also kind of really leads into the range that you can bring to Kai, because you have this unique challenge of taking local native ingredients and then also converting that into something that works for your menu that also really relies on your background. So you have to kind of make a marriage of those two things. Yeah,
it's been a wild ride for me down in Arizona. It's been very hard because like I'm not used to the food scene down here. I'm not used to like the agriculture. I'm not used to cactuses. It's wild to me still. The heat,
nopales, the prickly pear.
Yeah, it's and then the influence from Mexico, like the chilies, the peppers, like that kind of stuff. Like it's not a thing for us in the Midwest. It's all about grains. Sure. It's all about like stews, sausages, pastas, like that kind of like forte. Like it's hearty.
Right. It fits the weather.
Exactly.
And here we have dried things because it's just dry here. So we'll take it and we'll dry it and we'll try to rehydrate it later on. Maybe we won't.
Yeah, totally. So with Kai then, like as far as ingredient implementation, that's the word.
Implementation is a separate thing that we don't want.
No. What has been kind of the most inspiring ingredients that you're really latched onto, that you're really focusing on with next season of Kai?
Next season, it's kind of like a combination of three things for me. Chilies being predominant, dry chili especially.
That's what we got. Yeah, we got that in spades.
Yeah. Also kind of like mesquite beans, mesquite trees.
Very cool.
Different like beans, like palo verde beans. Kind of like elephant tree wood. Just cool things that aren't utilized a lot here. And then of course, prickly pear.
Which is a really fun ingredient that, I mean, outside of Arizona, I'm not sure how often it's used, if at all.
Zero, as far as I'm aware of.
Sure.
I didn't hear about it at all before I came down here.
That's so weird to think of, because out here it's such a staple that you go to any Joe Schmo Tex-Mex restaurant, they're like, here's a prickly pear margarita.
Yeah, and I think with that also comes like you're getting to play with these new flavors, new textures, and trying to integrate that into your background, which I know you're heavily influenced by Asian cuisine.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a fun marriage of like, can I make a tepary bean miso? Like, what else are you kind of working on right now to use those native ingredients in new ways?
Yeah, it's cool actually. Right now I just started a wolfberry miso, red corn miso from Ramona Farms.
Like wolfberries are something that people even here don't know nearly as much. Like, if you say prickly pear to anyone out here, they know what it is. Wolfberries are not an ingredient that most people are familiar with.
That's fair. The
good old foraging tidbits. Where do you go out to get them?
I don't forage for them necessarily, like right now.
Okay. But I mean, there's a season for it, so.
It is, and I'm still learning like the seasons here for foraging.
Yeah.
I forage for a lot of things here, but kind of like I use a guidebook right now because I don't have a local forager. Like back in Minneapolis, I forage for mushrooms, ramps, sumac. Like I knew places like Minnesota, Wisconsin. Like I had friends. Like we all went out.
It's interesting that sumac is just out in the woods of Minnesota.
I mean, you look at like the native culture up there in the Midwest, like wild rice, sumac, cattails. Like
sumac's just not used that often.
It's underutilized for sure.
Any Arizona cuisine.
I think it's hard to grow here.
I don't know if it does.
Because for us, it was predominantly in the summer, but it was kind of like 90 degrees, but high humidity. Where here it's just like fucking 115.
It's just gross.
115 dry to the bone.
Mm-hmm.
Where we get our chiles from. That's why I think that's interesting, the global use of preservation techniques. Like obviously Metro Phoenix doesn't exist without the boom of air conditioning and refrigeration and all that. But like if you're looking historically, like a lot of the native ingredients are used in a dried preparation because I mean there was no worry of there being too much moisture in a product they're going to grow bacteria that way. It was how do we get this as dry as possible so that way we can preserve this and we can rehydrate it as needed. It's interesting that was, I think it's fun to look at how the ingredients are, they're all preservation methods, but like how are you using your environment to preserve this ingredient?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's like choya buds are a huge thing for us on the menu.
Choya buds are pretty cool.
But like I went out and harvested choya buds once with a native because I was the only way you're allowed on the land is to be with a native.
Someone who can guide you and knows the area.
Or else they'll pull you over and say, get the fuck out of here.
Stop stealing from us.
Like, why are you here? Be like, well, I work at the resort. And I was just, okay, bye.
But yeah, we went out and like he explained the whole process to us. Like, you know, we'll dig a hole, we'll burn, and we'll dry them out like under the sun for 3 days. So I kind of do the same method in the restaurant.
Sure. I
blanch them for 20 minutes, take out the spikes, then dehydrate them at 115 degrees for 3 days.
Wow.
Then I pickle them to like rehydrate them.
So when you're pickling them, are you just doing like a quick pickle on it, or are you?
No,
you're burning up the acid and everything up, and then over it to rehydrate.
Yeah,
okay.
And I don't believe in water and pickles. I think that's a cop out.
Sure.
If you're gonna eat pickle, like
it's gonna hurt you.
Let's have a pickle.
If you're gonna eat a pickle, let's have a pickle. My favorite album.
I'm a huge fan of rice wine vinegar because it imparts sweetness.
Sure.
Yeah, of all the vinegars, it's probably one of the sweetest, other than like balsamic. But you get that weird like dark sweetness out of it.
Yeah, and for me, it's very like kind of like cut and dry sweetness.
Yeah.
So like that's why I use a lot of like that vinegar in the restaurant.
I guess apple cider
vinegar
also imparts some sweetness, just because your mind perceptually is like it's a fruit, kind of.
Yeah.
What would you say going into this next season, which starts August 17th? Which dish on the menu are you most excited about?
It's kind of like just threefold. I've been working a lot recently on new dishes and concepts. I think the coolest thing I'm working on right now is taking Crow's Dairy. I want to make our own cultivated butter for our cheese course. Awesome. So it'll be a goat cheese that we make in-house.
Interesting.
A goat butter, essentially, sorry.
Yeah.
Cultured butter.
We make in-house through Wendell. So it's a super like micro local application of an old world use.
Very cool.
Wendell is the ultimate character of all the people that I've met in Arizona.
He's crazy.
He exists in a separate plane. Just of existence.
We should do a goat episode with Wendell. That'd be great.
We'd have to drive all the way out to
worth it.
The crazy little goat farm. I like driving out to that farm because Metro Phoenix, there's quite a bit of urban sprawl. Like even if you go out to some of the farms, it's like, oh, it's like kind of close to the city still. You go out there and you're like, okay, well, I'm lost. It's dark. There's no street lights.
Cool. So you've got your butter working.
Yep.
And that's part of bread course?
Yeah. Yep. Meat's working. Start some guarms. Which is basically a guarm is, you take like bison essentially. Okay, so the prime example is a lean, not fatty meat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You inoculate it with koji, water, and salt. You cook it at 140 degrees for 3 weeks to 6 weeks because I'm always about speeding up the process. And it's a condensed meat flavor sauce.
Sure.
But the application is also used to make fish sauces. You can do like fish guarms, that kind of stuff. It's really old school. It's Roman.
Okay.
But it's kind of like a lost art.
Sure.
Like much of like culture and much of what I represent at Kai is, you know, where it's a dying culture.
Mm-hmm.
So to help like reinvent that and put on a pedestal that, for me, like, it's unique because like we're kind of a singular restaurant in the world that we have the ability, being a 5-star fine dining restaurant, to celebrate a culture that doesn't get recognition on that level.
Sure, absolutely.
Which is crazy to think about. Sean Sherman won Best Restaurant James Beard this year for Old Wami by the Sioux in Minneapolis, which was a block from where I used to work, which is crazy to think that, like, you know, like this, like the decolonization of the food for the native culture is a huge thing. Especially being on the pedestal that that is now.
Yeah.
To look at, like, you know, fry breads. Fry breads aren't a thing in the culture. Fry breads are a substitute full of lard, sugar, milk to sustain them when we killed off all the bison.
Yeah. Government rations and all that crap.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see we could talk about that one for hours, of the military rationing and those sorts of things. The colonization rationing is interesting to see how it permeates different facets of culture, like from fry bread to there's a Korean army stew that uses American cheese and Spam. Like, that's the amount of that influence in the world, and then like going back before that influence is really interesting.
I think too, like for this culture, like when I worked in Alaska, you know, the natives, like, it was a huge issue with abuse of substances.
Yeah.
Because what do you do when you're in oppressed culture? You abuse things to help you cope.
Yeah.
Nephi Craig, who's in the White Mountains, runs a restaurant called Cafe Gilza, which I'm sure I butchered. I'm sorry, but he does a lot of speaking. But his cafe is predominantly to help promote people who are recovering from substance abuse.
Wow.
And to promote native culture. He works with like Lalo farmers. I had the pleasure of meeting him probably 6 months ago.
Oh, awesome.
It was crazy. It's refreshing to, like, talk to someone who knows the culture, like knows what this is about. Especially for me, like, you know, being from the Midwest, I can cook decently well.
That's not the hard part.
I can run a restaurant, but, you know, it's for me, it's really about like diving into like what it is, like the culture, the actual substance of what you want to be, and really like get down to it.
Yeah, really
just hard.
Honoring it.
Yep. To honor it and to actually like focus in on it. Like, okay, what are we actually doing here as a restaurant? Are we just serving good food, or are we preserving a culture? I think that it's important to be able to have those conversations and focus on like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And how does that relate for you, like back to your staff in terms of like education and like pushing their careers forward as well, while also you're still learning and growing?
It's kind of weird for me. You know, I never thought that I'd be in this place where like I'm being mentored, but then I'm also a mentor, which is huge. You know, we don't ever gain progress by ourselves. Someone's always there who helps us. I'm very direct. My visions. You know, it's quiet. Like there's some music. Like people have their heads down. We all cook. I expect the best in perfection from every single person, including myself. You know, it's a drive that I have that I expect everyone also to have, and I hope I uphold them to the standards. And in subsequent, like they should uphold me. You know, I have a full shelf of cookbooks in my kitchen, which I allow my cooks, like, hey, like if you want to like take it home, read, learn.
Go learn.
Go read about it. Don't even necessarily make it, but like read that it exists, because it's important to like get an idea, like helps to make it, but also even knowing that some things exist and like, oh, this is a method, having that
it's just a frame of reference.
Internal Rolodex of like, oh yeah, this would be a cool thing to do, and I read about this one thing, so we can use that as the starting point and go from there.
Well, it's like talking to you guys today, like before I came here, like, you know, I sat at my favorite bar and I brought 5 cookbooks on my computer. You know, I got has something with all the Fat Duck, Sean Brock's Brock, Lanresa, Restaurant Andreas, and what was the last one I had? That was probably the Heritage by Sean Brock. And I just read.
Yeah.
Because it's cool techniques that you learn how to do, but it's how you adapt into what you use is what's special. Looking at Restaurant Andreas, like Octagon, there's 8 steps of creating a dish for him. Manresa, there's 3 steps. It's how you look at these chefs who define themselves, and how do you define yourself as a chef?
Yeah.
It was crazy to me. So what's it called? The little leatherback books.
Little moleskins?
Yep.
Bible.
So, I mean, hands down. So it is the live or die. You have this because I worked in kitchens where there wasn't tight recipes.
Yeah.
We're in fine dining, and it's word of mouth. The cook next to you who's training you gives you his moleskin for 20 minutes. So
copy this shit down.
Quickly jot it down. It's all chicken scratch. It's bullshit. So I bought a nice book when I was 20 years old. I recently found it, and there's
cool.
And there's actually journal entries on it. Well, I dated my age, 21.
Captain's luck. Today I got yelled at for this.
No, but you know what it was? It was kind of like that, but it was what is food? How do I perceive it? How do I bring it to what I want to become at 21 years old? 25. Okay, after running a restaurant, my views have changed. I think food should be more farm to table. I should have personal relationship with farmers. I should be able to connect my staff by not through using terror or scare tactics.
Right.
I should be able to develop them. And I actually recently wrote in it when I was 29 before the pandemic. I entered a different echelon of restaurants. So I came from one class of restaurants and transferred to a different. It's nothing against one or the other, but it's something I'm not used to.
Yeah.
So I was very put off guard and angry of where I had come, because I wasn't on a national scale. I wasn't being pushed very hard. I wasn't kind of, pushing the edge.
Sure.
So I wrote it down, my frustrations of where I came from, where I've come. And I recently wrote down, being the chef of Kai, taking this role is a huge step for me. It's a huge thing. And for me, my point in my life is, I'm 31. I have a fiance. So what does my next 5 years look like? I want to have a family. I want to...
Oh, look at the Midwest. Rearing its adorable face.
But, it's an actual thing. When I'm 31, what does my life look like?
Yeah.
To start a family, to have a marriage, to have a house, and be viable. Be viable in this culture.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing I wrote. It's what does it take? What steps do I have to make to become that way? And for me, I still have goals that I want to achieve. A beard.
You can grow those pretty good.
I know I can. But move somewhere, get a star. But at what point do I say I've accomplished and now it's time for my life? Because I sacrificed so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't go to my brother's wedding. I missed many birthdays, celebrations, all because I work a shift.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the interesting things about industry as a whole is the amount of sacrifice that there is. And I think that the industry, I think the pandemic especially was tragic, but it did a great job of giving people time to reflect on, what's actually important. Have those goals, but maybe don't sacrifice all your family and friends on like the back of those goals. And I think that's an interesting thing that everyone's had the opportunity to reflect on and like figure out a way to try and strike a balance.
I think that's kind of like why our culture industry is dying in a way. Because, you know, you work so hard and your blinders are on for the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Like you're busting your ass. Like you have no idea like what it is to like live normally, to like take care of yourself, be healthy. And the pandemic forced you to.
Like, here's a vacation, and everyone was like,
You're
"Oh,
like,
what the
I
fuck?"
don't know how to do this.
But like, alone, like the pay.
Yeah.
Pay's a huge thing. Like health insurance. So in 10 years, right? I never had health insurance. Dental.
On the edge.
I mean, I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
I didn't make over $30,000 a year for my whole entire adult life.
Which is just crazy because you're working in these high caliber restaurants, you're serving celebrities, you're serving famous chefs, but the reality of it is
but
you don't have much to show for it as far as finances.
No, but like for me, it's like it's my passion, my drive. Right. So I will sacrifice the money to drive myself to be like where I am. It's like I started as Kai as a line cook and became the chef in less than a year.
Yeah.
And there's a huge reason why. But money for me has never been a thing, but my body reflects it.
For sure.
You know, I remember one time I got so fucking sick. I was in Minneapolis and I couldn't get the couch for 3 days. My old man drove me to the doctor because I couldn't drive. I got the flu so bad, like I couldn't move. I was so broke I couldn't pay my medical bills.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's wild. Like it's wild to think, but like, it's not that wild.
No, that's the reality for a lot
common,
of people.
Which is real sad, and it's something that I am excited that I'm hoping that the industry will continue to
move towards wellness.
Not even the industry, like this industry specifically, because it's my passion, it's your passion. It's what we're here for, but there's so many people that they value it so much until they actually have to show the financial aspect of value, where it's like, oh man, I really love this, you know, this level of dining. It costs me X amount of money to pay for it. Well, I'll pay for it. But you see these people that are working and they're like, okay, well, like if it was only X amount more, I could at least have health insurance.
Right.
But guests wouldn't be willing to pay that X amount more, so that way they could actually take care of the people. So it's really, I hope to see the world continue to move towards taking care of.
You know, my mom and dad came out here for Bear Jackson. This is before Michelle Kai. And I got pretty fucking shit canned one day. My mom's driving home and we're talking, and like I broke down in tears. And she's like, why? I'm like, I have $400 my name. And that's before like I pay rent in 3 days. Now I'm negative. And she called me like a week later. She's like, I never knew how bad your money was. Like, it's been this for years.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think like I don't do things? I can't afford to. What
do you want to do? We're gonna stay in and play chess.
I mean, yeah, like I would buy a membership to like a rock gym for a year, and I would go there 6 days a week.
And this is a hobby that I paid for.
Yeah, I mean, and it buys time. Like it's
pretty healthy and fun too. Like it's fun if you can do it. I've got my chunky ass and my little fingers. I don't.
But like for me, it's like not like going out and like experiencing like different restaurants and different foods and seeing techniques and that kind of stuff. It's like you can't afford to do it, which is wild. It's a part of the industry that is so, I think, not toxic, but so it's behind the times. It's, you know, when in the pandemic, there was a restaurant in Ottawa and the government tried to supplement them to be open 7 days a week. And he's like, I can't pay my staff.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to do it.
Yep. Which good. I appreciate anyone with the awareness of like, no, I literally can't do that to people like that. like it's nice that you would like us to be open this much, but that's not making enough money to sustain people's lives. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me too, like it comes like my background, like composting. I'm huge for compost. We used to have this local farmer in Minneapolis come and pick up our compost every week because he would put it back in the soil. Like he would feed his pigs. Like he would do like all this stuff. Like you're giving back, where most restaurants don't do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is a huge like red flag for me. Like I won't work there if they don't do that. I'm just like I'm that like petty.
Yeah. Well, it's like the whole cycle of the thing is like if restaurants are doing well, it's because farms are doing well, and it's that cycle. And then if the guest is doing well, then the staff should be being paid, and like kind of the ecosystem almost of the industry.
Yeah, which I mean is, I'm happy it's bringing like into light now.
Yeah.
Of what it is, because like I mean Sean Brock, Megan Nielsen are all like promoting health and pay, and it. I mean, which Sean Brock has had his.
God, he's had the shit kicked out of him.
Slew of fucking mental issues and pay and abuse, and it's so weird to me that it takes someone who's such high caliber, but not really, to address these issues that we have all suffered from.
Yeah,
I am no different,
right?
In these ways, it's kind of crazy. But all in the name for something to put on the plate.
Love food.
Have no money.
Have no money. It is.
It's
a wild, the industry as a whole. Like you said, it's not that part necessarily isn't the toxic part. I think it's the systems in place that like keep it in line. Is sad. Or even it's like the lack of awareness. There's definitely like mismanagement with the restaurant industry on the business side of things, but like if a restaurant raises a dish by $1, like
the fucking world blows up. You know what I mean? I mean honestly, like I worked at restaurants for like not Kai, but like other restaurants like where we done tasting menus, and we raised it $20, and it's just still a fucking steal.
Yeah, and the people get so upset. $20,
$20 more. Like this is so expensive for like the portion I'm getting. I'm like, you're getting like 10 courses. your protein courses are 2 ounces a piece.
Yeah,
like my purveyors have raised prices. I have no choice, and like that's like the like conception. Like people like don't understand. Like, if I raise my menu, it's because I'm being charged more for products. Like,
you can come and look at my bank account. I don't have a yacht somewhere where I'm hiding all these funds.
It's like, a whole pheasant doesn't stay $6.50 a pound forever.
Yeah.
Just indefinitely, it's locked in. That's it.
You're like, you'll notice how your gas prices went up.
Yeah,
everything works that way.
Exactly.
So we're running out of time, but to leave us, I would be curious to know what advice you would give to people who are kind of just starting out their careers, because I think now that you've had so many different experiences and like you've gotten to where you are in your career, like looking back on it, like what is the one thing you wish you would have known?
For me, that's a good question. My biggest advice is, don't be afraid. Like, put your head down. If a restaurant, if you want to go learn more in like gastronomy, fine dining, or vice versa, whatever it is, knock on doors. And if they reject you once, twice, 5, 10 times, still fucking knock.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Because you're doing a different to yourself of saying, okay, I guess they don't want me to be like, complacent. No, fuck that.
Make them want you
every day. Like, hey, I'm here. And eventually, like, the chef will get so fucking annoyed of you. He'll say, okay, fine, I will hire you. But like, just not only that, like, for me, it's like I spend 12 hours a day in the kitchen doing like whatever I do, right? I spend probably about 3 hours a day outside of that, and probably about 5 hours a day on my days off, just reading, eating out, learning, developing myself personally, because that will get you more in life than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Put your time into yourself because you deserve it, and then don't let people shit on you.
That's awesome. It's great advice.
Unless you want people to shit on you.
You pay
2022.
You pay for that.
You pay.
No. Oh.
All right. Well, and on that note, now that we've shit all over the
Jesus Christ.
Oh man, I think that wraps it up. I think that the last table is gotten their final course. Give them the old hi kai bye.
Thank you for listening to Love Food, Hate Money. This episode and every episode is edited by John Watkins of Feathered Fiction Studios. He also does our original music, so if you need some sounds, hit him up. Check us out on social media. We're on all the major ones. And
MySpace, baby.
Send us your hate mail. Jonah really, really wants hate mail for God knows why. And send us your industry stories so we can put together a episode of just stories from what you've experienced.
Every part of the industry. If you work at a Circle K especially, I need to know.
Gas station stories.
I need to know about the convenience food sector. It's a very small sliver of this world that I don't know anything about, so I want that story.
And thank you so much to Drew Anderson for taking the time to come over and
Thanks, buddy.
record this episode.
Thanks.
A lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Made a mess.